I like to describe loyalty. You sort of said it a little differently as loyalty with a big L, that everybody has loyalty programs, which today is table stakes,
Right.
but it really is about how do you create a loyal customer. And what people forget about is there are metrics and there's emotion. And you have to be able to play to both of those. You want a consumer to affiliate with your brand, and you want to be able to use the tools to say, hey, we're here. Don't forget about us. And we love you.
Customer engagement is so much more than just a transaction. We all know that. But, think about the last time you were served by somebody in a retail environment, a QSR restaurant, or a hotel, anything you can think of, where that person took the time to acknowledge you genuinely, hear what you had to say about that acknowledgement, your response, and what it meant to you in the transaction. And it all boils down to me as like, what does that mean to customer relationships? But the truth is, it's just basic humanity.
That's right.
So,
And especially, think about it, even when it's more important when it's not a visual presence. So think about what has happened to customer service when you place a phone call, or even how you do something on live chat. So there's a company that I buy dog food from called Ollie, and great stuff, but it's very much what you're talking about. You get on with them and you see a little picture of the person, their animal is shown, they know that my two dogs are Gus and Stella when I get on and they see my thing and they talk about, well, is this for Gus or Stella? And it is those really small things that make a meaningful difference rather than the no that tends to get said across it. And also on the customer service front, which is just hospitality generally, many brands don't allow their customer service agents or anyone who deals with the public enough latitude. It's relatively small to say, yeah, go ahead, we'll give you this for free. But that person will now go and tell so many, wow, it was so easy to deal with them, as opposed to, oh my God, I wasted 30 minutes on hold and then 45 minutes trying to make the person understand what was wrong and then arguing with them as to what I wanted to happen. Those sorts of experiences really are big differentiators.
huge. And I mean, it's one of those big truisms in customer service that there's really no neutral outcome. It's either it was good and you get dividends out of that, or it wasn't good and there are different kinds of dividends. But there's almost never a neutral outcome from a customer service experience. So you have a choice to make because you're not going to. There's just no middle ground there.
And it's funny because um, everybody's gotten very smart about how to use social media to broadcast out. And they are far more eager to broadcast to people how bad the
Yeah,
experience was.
you bet.
One of the things that we do and that we work with our customers to do is we'll have customers that'll say, how come my app rating is, 3.4? And people love us. They tell us they love it. It's like, because you're not incentivizing them. And incentivizing does not mean giving them something. It means being smart about who you ask and when you ask to write that review or to say something wonderful. And we have transitioned a lot of customers from those very low, as low as 2.4 up
Wow.
to like 4.7.
Can can
And
we can we break that down a little bit? Because I think what you said is just really, really important. Because context is almost everything in those kinds of
that's right.
situations. So how do you approach that? I mean, what's the secret sauce? What's the Hope Neiman method?
So part of what we do is, again, by putting a lot of tools that are all about engagement onto an application, it gives you a lot of intelligence that you can automate and use AI against in order to cause those prompts to come up. So I might say that my average customer comes once a month, just hypothetically. And maybe what you say is, okay, to every customer who has come 3 consecutive months, at least once a month, and ordered more than X dollars worth of product and is a registered user, you're going to, at that third visit, send them a push notification that comes up, perhaps depending where you learn is the best place to put it in the order, and say, we hope you're loving us. We know that we love you. Prompt something that is very personalized and say, would it be okay for you to rate us? If, to the contrary, you have a customer who's experienced a problem or who says no, and you put another prompt that says, tell us more about that. We want to be able to get to you about what the best way to do this is. That also, in a very positive way, is taking what was a negative experience and turn it into something that you can now use, where that guest will come back and say, oh yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and rate you. Well, you solved my problem. You cared to know what my problem was.
Yeah. Yeah. To go back to your point, it is context, but uh, you have to approach this in a human way. Was just reading something this morning. Um, it was talking about good writing, but I think that the same applies here is that I guess somebody's little trick on if your writing stinks, if it just falls flat, add the phrase from a zombie to the end of your phrase. And if the sentence still works, then your writing stinks and it's flat and nobody cares. If you can't add that phrase from a zombie, then there's a little bit more human interaction there because we don't speak like we write and that kind and it all
That's
comes
right.
from this kind of spontaneous understanding of how we communicate in language and those subtleties and they're really hard to get down in an AI kind of model, but those subtleties are incredibly important.
What I love about what you just said, and it's true even on the whole AI front, when we look at um, what gets written, which doesn't necessarily feel genuine in the process to doing that, is people tend to write and hit send, and they don't step back and say, does this have more than one meaning? Or how's somebody going to take this, depending on what their mindset is when they do that? And a lot of the AI posting, which is very vanilla, feels that way,
Yeah.
versus being able to inject things that spark emotion, that spark something that gets you to want to read further or engage further in what you're doing.
Well, I'm listening to you and the way you're explaining this, and I'm thinking of one of my recent interactions with it might have been Siri, but it was one of the voice activated things out there.
Yeah,
And I asked it a question, it gave me an answer. And I asked it a follow-up question, it gave me another answer. So I was informed, I got the information, but I was anything but engaged. Because
exactly.
I'm talking to you. I'm interested in what you're saying, but I'm interested in how you're saying it. I mean, we're going down a long dog leg here, but I think as communicators, we understand that 90% or whatever the exact percentage is of communication is nonverbal. And whatever that big chunk is, it's a big, big chunk. And in the chat-based AI world, you really don't get those opportunities to layer in emotionality and context. Well, context, yes, but you know, you can't tell how I'm feeling. Actually, that's not
That's
even true
exactly right.
anymore. But I mean, I've seen models now that can detect my sentiment, which is a scary thing. So it's coming down the pike, but I don't think it's here yet.
Actually, I heard a podcast the other day from the New York Times that was all about a woman who had this is bordering on do we really want to go here? She developed a relationship with her chatbot that even turned into the equivalent of sexting. And it had trained it, and it became almost a addiction for her. But one of the things that was pointed out is how hard to get those other emotional. There, even those, if you really read it and read what came back to her, she was putting her own mindset on it.
Right.
It wasn't that it spoke to her in a way that is like a real person. And we've talked a lot internally about where we can use AI to polish writing or to take and do a first pass. But you have to understand it's only a first pass
Right.
because it's allowing you to get the details, much like what you were saying about fact, but it's not allowing you to get somebody to remember what you said or take notice or move on to something further. And that's really what all of us do on a daily basis for work. We hope has that kind of potential impact across it.
Right. Or where you were putting the emphasis in your words, like how animated were you? How important is this?
It's right.
It goes beyond just the what you're saying and everything to do with how you're saying it.
It's interesting. One of the things that you and I talked about last week was around loyalty. And I went back and looked at some of the data that we had in terms of, which was even worse than I recalled it, in terms of the number of loyalty applications people have and how they engage with it in terms of how they feel about those apps. And what I came to realize, mainly because I talk about loyalty a lot internally or with our customers, is that it's table stakes. But table stakes is just the basics. Yeah, you're going to do your card and you'll do it when you're there. But you're not thinking about, oh, I should start thinking about my next visit, or look how close I am, or look what I get, or look what's different. It's just check the box.
Hmm.
And that by making all of those programs so generic in their approach or so non-personalized, um, it's very reminiscent to me of, which is now gone by the wayside, of when Bed Bath and Beyond had their 20% off coupons. Would you ever have gone into a Bed Bath and Beyond without a stack of coupons to be able to use? Because they did allow you to stack them.
But the funny thing was, if you were the one person in line who forgot your coupons, they'd say, "Hang on a second, I've got one right here for you."
Yeah.
Like,
And
I mean,
that's
there's
exactly
a certain amount of goodwill they're building up with that, but it's just a race to the bottom in terms of discounting.
that's right. That's exactly right. And not something that motivated you like, wow, I need to go to Bed Bath and Beyond because of this. It's the other way around. Oh, I need this. It's there. And oh, I have those 20% off coupons. So I'll just take them. That doesn't build a relationship with me as to why I should be so devoted to them versus going to Target or Walmart or some other going to Bloomingdale's or Macy's. I mean, if I had, depending what I have to buy. And that's part of the reason I'm guessing they declared bankruptcy and did it because what consumers expect today is continuing to, that bar is rising everywhere, not just, for us in restaurant or in a retail environment, but everywhere.
Every single sector, and I think you could say, almost without exception, every developed country in the world. We participate every year in a survey that measures customer expectations on a category by category basis, and it's wild. It's a really neat survey. What we do is we work with a group called Brand Keys, and they measure um, the ideal situation, the ideal brand, and all of its attributes for a certain category. If you're looking at buying shoes, no, bedding, because we were just talking about it. Um, they map out exactly like what's the best it could be. What do you really want out of that situation? And that becomes the ideal. And then what they do is they go to the other brands in that category, all the brands in that category, and measure the differences between them and the ideal. And what you find out over time is, you know, who really cares about what customer expectations are, who's investing in understanding them, but also how they're just increasing wildly year after year after year, category by category, to the point where, you know, after a couple of years of, if a brand's kind of increasing their ability to meet expectations somewhat, but the expectations are rising faster than brands can keep up, at some point there's this big difference in there that's an opportunity for somebody to go, wait, all I need to do is close the gap. You can optimize for NPS, and that's good. You can optimize for CSAT, also good. You can optimize for loyalty, and that's good too. But here's the thing, if you're not optimizing for total customer value, for total customer profitability, then you're just optimizing for output, not the bottom line. Here's the truth. If your strategy isn't building better customers, more frequent, more loyal, more deeply bonded, then it's not a strategy, it's a performance. At Customerland Studio, we help brands find the value, find the opportunities, the force multipliers hiding inside the customer relationship. And then we help them optimize for scale, for yield, for profit across the entire relationship. Because the other thing we've learned, the only strategy that actually matters is the one that makes your customers more profitable. Customerland Studio, to make better customers. Go to customerland.net and click on the studio.
That's right. I mean, it's interesting. Look at somebody like Patagonia or LL Bean, who will take back something no matter how long you've had it. And I don't know how many people actually return items at those brands, but the idea that that promise is there says a lot about, okay, I know I'm going to pay a little bit more for this Patagonia item, but it's going to last me. It's not going to be something I'm going to throw away in 2 years, or that's, whatever is going to happen to it. And so there is an expectation about caring, even beyond, in their case, talking about the environment or the other values that they tend to live by. And I find that always very interesting that they've achieved something that is very different than going to the bottom, as you said before, because the flip side of going to the bottom is everybody's on Amazon.
Yep, it
And
sure is.
there are a bazillion brands you've never heard of. But if it's something really practical, do you want to just see what it is that's there and buy it if it's nothing, and if it's meant to be disposable in some way? Or a brand that you buy, look, it's cheaper here, I'll just get it, it'll come to my house. But when it comes to things that matter, do you really want to do it there, or not? And that's an important consideration.
I kind of just want to let that question hang in the air for a minute and just let everybody kind of consider it, because it's you think about your own life situation, the things that you need to buy, groceries, whatever other commodity type purchases you're going to make. But beyond that, you can go to Amazon and get just about anything you want out there. But do you really want to? Are there brands out there that would cause you to not go and click the Amazon button? And whatever the emotional components of that decision would be are really worth paying attention to. Um, I wanted to just kind of turn this conversation a little bit. I know that Tillster does a lot of work in the QSR space.
Yep.
And QSR space is really interesting from a loyalty standpoint, because yes, there are certain people who will go, I only go here because that's my thing. But that's a fairly small component, I think. I don't have the data to back that up. It's just a gut feel, which is worth nothing. But that leaves a lot of room for brands in the QSR space to figure out engagement. So how do you go about that at Tillster? Like, what's your roadmap for doing that?
Well, one of the things that we do that's different than others as well is we look at And not that all of our customers take all of the different platforms or tool sets that we do, but we have an understanding of the entire restaurant ecosystem. So there are people who come to the restaurant, there are people who order for delivery, there are people who order for pickup. You have kiosk users, you have mobile app users. And in the old days, it used to be all of those people were different. But because we have tools across them, we also have a means of connecting the dots. So we can see what drives consumers to do that. One of the reasons that we have a consumer data platform that's part of all of our pieces, even to check for an anonymized user at a kiosk, is to better understand how people are using multiple dispositions today, which is very prevalent. They still want to have a shared experience. So sometimes I want delivery and sometimes I want pickup and sometimes I want to be in the restaurant.
Right.
But I want a similar experience. I want you to take my loyalty with me everywhere. I want to take my offers. If you're sending me coupons, I want to take those with me no matter what I'm using. And that is not incidental to people. In fact, people are walking away. They're realizing that the personalization experience is not as effective as they would like. And so as a result, better than 50% of the people today are saying they've left a restaurant because it wasn't personalized to their liking, which to us was a shocking revelation when we
That's a
did
big
some.
number.
It's a big number. And they're they're willing to go ahead and say, I got lots of other choices over here. I've been in a variety of industries in my life, and we found that there were kind of two classes of people, and the same thing is very true in QSR. Everybody says, oh, give me the best deal. Oh, I have this coupon. The coupon makes you walk across the street for that visit. But if you're going to make it much more convenient for me to pick up a pickup order, that that's going to warm me over. So I'll give you an example. In this research we did, do you know that over 30% of people who tried to do a pickup order couldn't even get into the parking lot? So you look at things like curbside or all the rest of it. It's great. They tell you where to park. But if you can't even get into the parking lot, what good is it?
Right.
If when you get there, there are people that are parked there that are shopping in the spaces that are supposed to be there, you're not going to pick this brand anymore. So understanding and using things like, okay, let's geofence it. We know you're here. Maybe we message you and say, hey, we know it's really busy today. We will bring it out to you. Those are things that are like, wow, why would I go to anywhere else to save 50 cents when I've now saved the aggravation of going ahead and doing that?
That's
And,
gold.
that's total gold. And one of the things, even about loyalty programs, we talked about loyalty a little bit ago. Shocker, ran some research earlier this year. How many loyalty apps do you have on your phone? Do you have any idea how many the average person would have? Like for QSR, for QSR.
For QSR, gosh, I'm gonna say average person 4.
Okay, you're pretty good. I would have bet it to be higher, but here's where it's astounding. 22%, zero. These are among people that consider themselves QSR visitors that
Huh.
go a minimum of once a month. Zero on 22%. 43% have between 1 and 3.
Okay.
So you guessed a little high. Between 0 and 3, that's 2/3 of the people. And then 4 to 6 is another 20% or so, with the remaining people having more than that.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, if loyalty is considered table stakes, build a program that's motivating. And it's different between a Starbucks or a Dunkin', where you go every day or 3 or 4 times a week. That's great. You're cycling through, you're earning something. It's interesting now that Starbucks has made their program a little more transparent. In the past, it would be great, you're earning points. How do I even use these? Nobody
Right.
even knew. You would ask people, it's like, I don't know, but I have all these points. But what's different about more of a QSR is that they don't even, many of them are non-customers, don't even think about how many visits does the average person have to come to earn something? Because if I don't earn something or have a message that's related to that, I forget about it. All it is points sitting there. And oh, by the way, when I come back in 6 months, you might have already balanced out my points. So now I'm angry about something that you used to do that. So it's operated in a very different way. So we'll use things like AI clustering to be able to look at when is somebody likely to rotate off. Or better yet, if I know that you only come, Mike comes only for his own meals, and I may go to pick up for my whole family. If I'm going to send you an offer to come back, I'm not going to send you something that spend $30 because that's not reachable. But if I know that you're going to come back, you may spend normally 12. So I'll send you an offer for 15. Wow, that's achievable. I can go. Now I have a reason to go back and visit before it goes away. I may get an offer. If you sent me something for $15 and I'm buying for a family of four, that's just giving away money
Right.
versus my average check that may be $35 and it's telling me I have to spend 40 or $42. Now there's just enough of a reach. You're paying for the program. You have somebody feeling good about it being achievable in the same way that, you know, if my average customer comes 4 times a year, but I can create something to get them to come 6 times a year, every other month, that's a 50% increase on that person.
Right.
I've now delivered a much better outcome to myself. So we use a lot of these tools around our CDP, around various messaging that's tied to offers, and using AI appropriately to make them very personalized in the process.
Yeah, I can see that, if you looked at that process, what it looked like and what went on to make a personalized offer at scale, say 2 years ago, it was a very different process. There was
Right.
a lot of Excel spreadsheeting going on there. And not
And
to
for
say that,
us,
go ahead,
sorry,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No,
What
I
I
was
was
gonna
going to say
say
is
that
also, no, you go, please.
no, 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 you we're here to
What
hear
I was
you.
going to, okay. So, one of the things also related to when you say how different some of that is we're not using AI in a lot of smarter ways with respect to making recommendations to guests, but we've had a lot of like big surprises. So in the old days, 2 years ago, even, you would say, okay, I'm going to give you something at the end of your meal. And probably it's a dessert, maybe it's a soft drink to upgrade to a shake, maybe it's a side dish. And maybe AI, a little bit of smarts in there might change which of the categories, maybe a little bit more expensive. Today, we've got real data against it, and it's shocking some of what you've learned. So, a major restaurant brand of ours, we launched this program, and they're like, this is doing bad. This you're delivering the wrong things. I ordered a combo and you recommended a sandwich, a hamburger only. Well, guess what? 7% of their audience marries a hamburger to a combo. They had no idea. And we're taking the right moments to offer that. It may not be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but it may be at lunchtime. And so those are the things that are changing today in terms of allowing people to open their minds by having information that can be so micro targeted um, to be effective.
It's wild. It's wild. You know what we never did? We never introduced you.
Okay.
So this person I've been talking to the whole time, this fount of wisdom and knowledge, is named Hope Neiman, and she is the CEO. I'm sorry, CMO. Your CEO would
Correct.
appreciate that. CMO at Tillster, and has a lot to say, and really glad we had this conversation. And I'm really hoping that we can do a few more of these because, one, I think you bring a really fresh perspective to the ideas that make loyalty work. And because there's a lot of loyalty that just doesn't work out there.
That's right.
And it ends up being that fresh perspective is just really good, solid human common sense as applied to some really good, solid business rules.
And it's beyond business rules because it's also about emotion. You know, I lived through the first life of e-commerce in places that were not restaurant. And the pendulum kept swinging. Traditional marketing was like all about emotion, TV ads, and you name it. Then it was all about numbers. Only look at the metrics. Look what it did. And fortunately, not everybody knows, but fortunately for the most part, the pendulum is swinging back to tie those. And as humans, we want a connection, even though we also enjoy those digital pieces that make life easier. We still don't want to sit in our bubble. I mean, that's really, I think, something that COVID taught all of us.
All
You
right.
don't want to just sit at home. You want to be able to connect with people.
So I'm going to let that one just hang in the air as well because it's good. It's worth just letting that one just sit there. Well, Hope, thank you for your time
You're
and
very welcome.
I mean, we had a great time kind of planning this call, had a great time actually doing it with you. Really
Thank
looking
you.
forward to the next few times we can do it.
Awesome. I had a wonderful time as well. I look forward to our next conversation.